Hello, everyone. Thank you, JR, for taking over. Yeah, anytime you guys want to take it a shot, feel free to, let's talk, and yeah, you guys can lead too. So thank you for that. Yeah. So you guys got an introduction to Express, which is great. I wanted to talk a little bit about why would we want to create a server with Express versus creating a server with regular HTTP module. What are some of those? Yes.
It's easily readable. You can move things. You can, anybody can pretty much read.
Is easier, O'Neill? More security. Yes, I mean you can still do it secure with HTTP. It will reveal a lot of more work on your end. And with all these tools, the more control you have, the more careful you have to be. Shar?
It comes with more things than HTTP.
A little bit louder?
It comes with more functions and routes and everything than HTTP, right?
Yes, it comes with a lot of stuff that we will need to do if we do it with HTTP. Hubal, I think you had something. Less files? Yeah. I mean, you don't have to create a server? Oh, that'll be thanks to Node Mode, yeah.
Is it easily organized?
It is easier to keep organized, yeah. So, yeah, those are all good reasons. That's why Express exists, because it's so common for us to create web servers. That somebody said, oh, for creating a web server, I'm always doing these steps. Let's just have the computer do those for us. And I think Express.js must be one of the most downloaded modules that there are. Yeah, 8 million downloads a week. So yes, we will want to be building web servers with Express. So let me create a folder here, or go to CD, Unit 3, intro to Express. Okay, so let's look back at the server we had created. Let me disable this first. I'm going to call this HTTP server. Okay, so I'm just going to do the steps that you already did, which is do npm init, because I want to create a npm project here. I'm going to accept all the defaults, so I'm going to do /yes. Oops. You could do, if you don't want to hit enter all the time, you could do npm init -yes, and that will accept all the defaults. If you want more control to specify the version, the name, you can just do it that. Oh, actually, I'll need to change this here. But that's okay. So let's install Express. We can do that with npm install express. As I said, --save is no longer necessary because it was so common. This is something that we programmers do. If you find yourself repeating a lot of the time, you just make it so that you don't have to repeat yourself. So when I was learning, I had to specify --save. A year later, you don't have to. So let's do npm install express. We will see if I open that in here. Now I have Express here as listed in my dependencies. The next thing that you want to install is, well, we want to install Node, but why do we want to install NodeMon? You guys remember, like yesterday, what we need to do with HTTP server? Kill it every time, right? So that, again, one instance where developers saw, oh, I had to do this all the time. What's a pain in the ass? Let's create something to solve that. So NodeMon, so note that also NodeMon is something I want to use, but it doesn't really affect my project, right? So I want to install NodeMon, but this is like a development tool, right? That NodeMon itself will not be part of my project. I'm going to use NodeMon to restart the server automatically for me. So that's why we wouldn't do npm install NodeMon, because this will make NodeMon a dependency of our projects. But our project is not really going to depend on NodeMon. NodeMon is a developer tool. Also, NodeMon stands for Node Monitor. It will monitor your files and reload automatically. Yeah. NodeMon is a utility that will monitor for any changes on your source and automatically restart your server. Perfect for development. Right? So again, one more time, my project will not depend on NodeMon. This is a developer tool. So that I don't have to kill the server and start again.
Quick question.
Yes.
Is -G like a good habit or what?
So yeah, so that's what we will do here. Like, since NodeMon is not a dependency of my project, I could say npm install -G NodeMon. What this would do is download and install NodeMon, but not on my folder node modules in this folder. It won't put it here. It will put it somewhere else. Where else? Let's see if I can find that. Let's do this. I'm gonna install npm install -G node. So we saw that Express must be inside of these node modules, right? That's because we did npm install Express without the G option. Let's try this, and let's see where it ends up being. So this is what this is doing is installing NodeMon globally. You could think of that as sort of like a global variable, right? That it will be available all the time to whoever needs it. Oh, look, it even says where it puts it here. NodeMon 1.19 was installed at this address or at this path. So if I go, let's say, I'm going to list everything that is in node modules. This is all we have in node modules. In here, Express is the main one. Probably Express pull all this other stuff, right? Now we don't have to think about it. I cannot see Express, but it must be here. Here, down here. Cool. So these are all the dependencies. All the other stuff, since we haven't installed, must be all the dependencies of Express. And we see that NodeMon is nowhere to be found here. NodeMon was put in this global place. So I want to see if I do which NodeMon. Yes. So whenever you don't know where something comes from, you could say which, and then it's going to tell you where it's coming from. For instance, which node, where does node come from? It comes from this location. So yeah, so you can see that NodeMon was installed in my home folder, /Alejandro, npm packages, /bin/NodeMon. Then that means that then I can run, since Node was installed globally, I can run NodeMon. So I try to run it without anything. Oh, it actually picks up, which is pretty cool. It will pick up, this was not expected, but it's picking up whatever file. I run node mode, and first it didn't complain about command not found. Actually, try this yourself. Let's make sure that it doesn't say command not found for you. Once you do npm install -g node mod. If it still says that, then we might need to do something. Still says that? It still says command not found when you type node mod. Okay, so everyone has like node mod running. Okay, great. So note that I didn't need to say node mod, index.js or anything like that. And that might be because, let me go to my folder intro to servers, to Express. That is because NodeMon is a cool tool, and NodeMon will pick up whatever file we have here in the package JSON. This is the package JSON. NodeMon will pick up any file that we have here in main. So you may have a different one. So yes, Owen. App crashed. That's common. Look for the first line. Let's read that. The first line of the error, basically. Express, so that means that you didn't install Express on your current folder. So everyone sees something like this in their terminal. No one started. Cool. So this right here for mine is running my HTTP server. It's running the one that I was running yesterday, and I want to create a new one for Express. So I'm gonna do here touch. I'm gonna call it Express server.js. Then I'm gonna kill NodeMon because NodeMon is not running what I want. And then if I want to run, well, first of all, I need to put something on Express server.js. So I'm gonna call code here to open my folder, and this is what we have. So don't worry if you don't have HTTP server. That's the one from yesterday. Express.js, I think with Jar you called it index.js, right? Let's just call it index. So now let me do these steps that you already did, which is import Express, equal require Express, then create a server or an instance of a server by calling Express. Then we can declare a port. Let's do 8080. Lastly, let's do app.listen. You could call like this app, you could call server, you could call anything. This is the core that we need. This is going to be our server. So let's specify the port and a callback function saying console log. Let's do string interpolation, server running on HTTP, ://localhost. And then here, let's put the port. Close this console log. And so let me close this. Okay, so everyone has this already set up like this, right? So I'm just gonna do, so for now, for running this with NodeMon, I'm just gonna do NodeMon index.js. If everything went well, we got this. As JR showed, if you make any change to note here how this is gonna refresh. I think even if I add a new line, I save, this is refreshing, right? rerunning the server for us. What a relief. So then the next thing that we will look at is how to create our own first route. So which you already saw with UI, which is app.get. So app.get is a function in the app object or in the server itself. Yes, Peter?
So the listen should always go on the bottom?
That's a good question. We could try it maybe before and see if it works. I think it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. Mm-hmm. So let's do app.get. The first argument that you need to specify for get is the path or the endpoint at which you want to listen for a get request. Let's just do slash. As Yara said, Facebook, when you go to slash, just the slash, facebook.com, this is what you get. So let's do that. And the second argument to .get is a callback function. This callback function will be passed the request, which we abbreviate to just rec, and the response, which we abbreviate to just res. So this is that anonymous callback JR was talking about earlier. Now, this callback will be called anytime a get request arrives to this endpoint, arrives to just the slash endpoint. So let's do in here, to send a response, we could just say respond or res.send and then the message. I'm going to say something like, this is the homepage at slash. So we have that. Let's go back here to the browser. Let's hit that with, well, my server is running. Good thing that I have Node on. Let's do ap :// localhost, and this is 8080. Let's hit enter, and then we have this is the home page at just a slash. So this slash here is matching, you know, the root as it's also called, even though we don't have a slash here. If we have it, that will be matching like this slash. Just that Chrome, if we have it, removes it. But this is known as like the root or the main endpoint. Yes?
So send automatically splits it into DOM?
That's a good question. So no, this is not in the DOM. Actually, this is just plain text. Let's see. Hopefully I don't see HTML here. We do see HTML. But this HTML that I'm seeing here when I'm inspecting like this page is being put by Chrome. Like if I repeat this request on Postman, you're gonna see no HTML code, just the bare raw string or characters. Yeah. Oh, let's try it with curl. Let's do this. Curl HTTP localhost 8080. We see like raw text. No HTML. This is what we're getting. Postman sometimes takes some time, too long to load. Cool. Any questions to this point? What do you think will happen if What do you think will happen if I try to make a push request to this endpoint? I'm going to try to make a push request to this endpoint, to just the slash. Thumbs up if you say it's going to work. We're going to see the message, this is the homepage at slash. Thumbs down if you say it's not going to work. We're going to get an error.
What do you mean a push request?
A post request. So take 2 minutes, talk to whoever is sitting next to you, near you. Come up with a vote. Thumbs up is we're going to see this message popping up in the screen when I make a post request. Thumbs down is you're not going to see this, you're going to see an error. make sure to speculate as to why you pick your choice. Cool. So raise your hand and cast your vote. Thumbs up is going to work. Thumbs down is not going to work. Where's everybody else? Just cast your vote. I see more thumbs down than up. Okay, let's say, so thumbs down are currently winning. So let's see. Some of the people that did thumbs down, like why wouldn't it work? People?
I just have the theory that it has to be like specified as a JavaScript file for it to do something.
What has to be specified?
Like, you see how you have the app again, and then that tells it's a set back the message.
Yeah, so anybody else wants to support Hupol's claim? Michael?
I agree. I think even if you didn't specify, it's going to save anywhere.
But why wouldn't it go anywhere?
You're not telling the server what to do with that information.
Cool. So let's put some more accurate language. So you guys are correct. It's not gonna work. Let's see it happening. So I'm gonna change this to 8080. Just to the root endpoint, and I'm gonna change this to a post request. I'm gonna hit enter to send it, and we see an error. You can hit here on preview, and it says cannot post. So you cannot send a post request because what Hupol and Michael said, we haven't instructed the server how to handle a post request. We haven't instructed the server how to handle a push request. That is, so here, the structure is, as those that read the lecture notes, this shouldn't be a surprise, but let's do Express. I think, maybe here. Yes. We can see here that you need to specify the app, that method, the method that you want to handle. In this case, we're handling the get method only at this time. We're handling the get method only. To handle the post, we'll do app.post / and then a request response handler, this callback function that we pass in here. And then I could just say something like server saw a post request coming at just / or the root endpoint. This is how we could have the server listen for a post request at this endpoint. Whenever that event happens of a post request arriving at this endpoint, then this function gets invoked. So let's see this in action. Same request. Thanks to node mode, I don't have to kill it. It should have restored already. Let's do send. And now we saw this message instead of the error saying server saw a post request coming at /. So now we have taught our server how to handle post requests, get requests, and post requests. What happens if actually everyone was able to see this? So what do you think will happen if I try to make a delete request?
Probably at the same time error that happened with post when there was nothing specifying delete as an action or method.
Yes, that's correct. So if we try to send this, it says cannot delete. We haven't instructed our server how to handle a delete request. No, computers are dumb. They won't do if you don't tell them to do. Cool. So that's that. We're gonna revisit this in a few minutes. I just realized that I was jumping at what we see before this is different routes. So here, let's go back. I'm gonna leave the post there. If I want to have, so you see the example with Facebook or with Twitter, you go to the home page and then you receive a website, and then that website has links, and then you can click on those links and it takes you to other endpoints, right? Let's do at Craigslist, a simpler website. So when we go to Craigslist, we see here this is known as the root endpoint, right? Because we don't have anything specified after the slash. But then I could go to community, and then this change here. Let's see, 8. This change now. Now I'm at /d/community/search/cc. The main point here is like that we went to some other place. We went to some other endpoint. If I go to, let's go back to the root endpoint. Let's try jobs because we're interested in jobs. I still enter Craigslist, check for developer jobs from time to time. So actually my first job in America I got in Craigslist. So, you know, it occupies a special place in my heart. That is not a good job. Let's go to computer services. Yeah, this is pretty wild. So we saw the main the main point is that we are seeing that depending on what endpoint we're going at, we have different content on the page, right? We want to display different things. We want to serve different content. So let's learn how to handle different endpoints, because so far, what do you think is going to happen if I do /about_us in here? Talk to whoever is sitting next to you. 1 minute. What do you think is going to happen once I click /about_us and hit enter? Error? Error, or is going to work? Error? Did you guys try it? It says cannot get. That's correct. So it's saying you cannot get at about us, right? So this is, we haven't specified that extra path. So let's create an about us. Let's do. Actually, you do this. Create a route /about us that will reply with This is the server from the 6.2 class. Let's take 5 minutes to do that. Create a route or add an endpoint to your server, the same way that we have done for the others, to /about us that will reply with this is a server from 6.2, from the 6.2 class. Exactly like this. So somebody can guide me as to what do I need to type here? Jonathan? Why get? But wait, why get? Okay, so you're saying we are getting the endpoint, right? Right, we want to make a get request, not a post request or not a put request. Us. A second argument being a callback function. The request and the response. Okay, what do I put inside the callback? Res.send. Welcome to what? To the 6.2. Server. Cool. So let's see these going on. I'm just gonna refresh the page. Now we have our proper message being displayed there, right? Cool. So now we've enabled our server to handle more than one route. Another one could be something like maybe app.get, or this is a common one, like /login, right? So when you try to log into our website, let's try Instagram. Instagram/login. I think this page isn't available. Maybe Twitter or Tumblr. I think Tumblr has login. Login on Tumblr, yeah. So then it takes me to the login page. If I only do Tumblr, it takes me to the home page, which is not the login page. I'll need to click this button to go to the login page. Once I go there, I get redirected to /login. So that could be another one. let's add /login. This is, I'm going to say, this is, I'm going to say, the login page of the server for 6.2 is under construction. Under construction. So I just added one more out, /login. Gonna go to /login. Now it's the login page of the server for 6.2 is under construction. We don't have anything to show there yet. So yeah, so we could even do, or any questions or comments about handling different routes. So what we're creating here is sort of like hierarchy, just like when you do very much. I actually think this might be inspired on the folders that you have. You see when you do like ls or when you do pwd, you see how I'm like this is my current location, a folder called /users/Alejandro. When you go /cd/ you are in the root, the tree root. So it's very similar to when we have on our server just /, and we're branching out into. So we have like / is the root, and from here we branch out to /about us, and we branch also to /login, right? And then you can just keep branching off as your app needs. There is no set limit as to how many branches you can have. But the question is, can we nest routes? Let's say we're creating a catalog app, and you have something like /catalog. Can I have a /catalog/ bikes or any or clothing? Can we basically like branch off space? So yes.
When we created the server using HTTP, we can't have endpoints.
That's a really good observation. So let's look at that. So this is the HTTPS, the HTTP server, the one that we saw yesterday on the left. So Brianne is asking, when we created this more rudimentary but also more configurable server with HTTP, we couldn't, or at least we didn't see how would we handle different endpoints, right? So that is a great observation, because that is one of the advantages of using Express. Not because this one doesn't allow me to do routes, but because here I have to manually say, do you guys remember that the request URL will have like the endpoint? I have to say something like if request URL == about us, then do something, and then I'll need to basically manually create these if statements to route requests to different endpoints. Basically the same for, if I were to do this request login, then I'll have to say all this, basically. And then return to quit, basically. so that it doesn't execute anything else. Actually, I'll need to do this like at the end, something like around here. And then let me just get rid of this, since we already have them here. So if I want to have like routes on my non-Express server, oh, by the way, Express under the hood is using HTTP. It just comes with some pre-configuration that we don't have to do this. This is how I could handle having multiple endpoints on the HTTP, again, built-in module, more rudimentary, more configurable. But you know, this is now for having an endpoint. Now I need 3 lines, right? But on Express, I still need 3 lines. But isn't this more? Oh, also, isn't this more easy to read? App.post. Note that here I'm not handling if it's a post or if it's a GET request. Like on the all one. On the all one, I'll need to say if request.method is equal to GET, and this is the request URL, then do that. Right? That'll be a little bit more work. All right, yeah. So this will be like one strategy if you want to have multiple endpoints with the regular HTTP server. That's why, again, so developers saw themselves writing these if statements a lot and said, let's do something that will help with that. And then Express was born. With Express, we could just say this much more easily. That was a great question. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes?
Not to possibly jump ahead too much, but if we were to require one of our HTML file and put response like res.send the connected, is that how you load the whole page?
Yes, you are going down the right path. Let me see. Okay, yeah, let's look at one example like that. We're not gonna put the entire file. You will somehow require it, yes, but let's see this first. So you see how here I said, wait, didn't I have one about us? This was about us. But here the login. So note that this res.send, how did we used to do this with the previous module, with the HTTP module? How to send the request, send the response? Joy? So we stringify the JSON object, and what else? .end, respond.end, right here. So this was, and we saw that when we were not stringifying, we could just write the string here, right? So here I'm sending the request with saying respond. I'm sending the respond by saying response.end JSON. So it turns out that in here, so this is, I'm sending just this raw string, but I could send HTML. I could do this. Let's remove this page from being under construction to actually be a page. I'm going to change to backticks so that I can break this into multiple lines. I'm going to say it's still under construction, but you can log in. You know what? Let's copy this. Now copy that, and then what I'm going to do here, I have backticks. Note that if you don't have backticks, then you cannot break the line. And I'm going to do HTML tag HTML here, and then I'm going to have, not even going to have a header. I'm just going to do a body and close the body. And then I'm going to have an H1. Here I'm going to paste this, close the H1. Still under construction, but you can log in. This is actually not true, but that, and then I'm going to create an input. Let's do placeholder username, just like that. I'm gonna copy this input and just create one for like the password. Placeholder password, and I want the password to be hidden, so I'm going to say type password. Lastly, I'm going to create a button. Just log in. So the only different thing that I'm doing here is that instead of sending a raw string, now what kind of string am I sending? An HTML string. What does the browser know about HTML? It knows how to show it, right? It knows how to show HTML. So everyone has this. Just put some HTML. It doesn't have to be this exact same one. Then try with Postman or with the browser. Try to go to /login on your server. Yes, Peter?
Where it says type password, is that what makes it when you start typing come up with little black dots instead of the actual letters on the page itself?
Wait, where?
On line 20, it
Oh.
says placeholder, password, and type password.
Oh, yeah.
That's what makes it like come up as black dots instead of the letters.
Yes, this type password is what will make it come in as dots on the text on the password field. Okay, so everyone has this. Raise your hand if you already saw what you're gonna get. Cool. So let's see the rest of us. Let's see what we are going to be getting. HTML. I'm gonna say this is the previous result. You see just the raw string. I'm gonna refresh this page. I'll make that request, and we have our login page. Yep.
Instead of like coding HTML inside strings, can you import a file using those?
Yes, that will be sort of the next step, which we're not going to get to see today. But yes, that is then to answer Douglas' question. Yes, you could just plug in here an HTML file, and that will be sent. That is quite cool. And then, yeah, like this will be a backend for this server. Questions or comments about this? So just like we can send HTML, we can send raw text. If that text is something that the browser understands, then the browser will display it in that fashion. If it's not something that the browser understands, it will just output whatever it found. We could send JSON in here. We're going to see one of the advantages of using Express is that the JSON gets converted from an object to a JSON string automatically. So I'm going to leave this one here just for fun. Let's take a 5-minute break and I'll be back. Yes.
The header that comes in, that's just a Chrome.
Oh yeah, that's Chrome.
Yeah, they did it. That's pretty
So, thank you.
So basically, yeah, like there you maybe don't put an anchor. And you usually the server is listening, and then we just put this function there too. Server. That the server is listening.
So do you need this function?
Try with that and see what you get. It didn't work. What is that?
It says the second. I didn't change anything else.
Listen, you will need the listen, but take out the callback.
Oh, so it's fine.
So that's the it's like, but again,
But you need, that's what I was asking, you need the listen.
oh, you do need the listen.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes, the
But
listen.
you don't need to put anything.
Yes, you need to put anything in the callbacks. Try to see if you can get rid of the callback altogether. The callback, you need the listen, but let's see if you need the callback.
I don't have a callback in there.
You
Oh,
have it,
mean
it's just
like-
it's not doing anything.
Like listen and then export.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it works for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are you sure? Because I actually think we're pretty constrained on time. I think it could be wait till tomorrow.
Some fellows already know. Some
Okay.
know, all know.
Okay. Okay, so let me see. Like, so since I need to give them like 5 minutes to
Finish
keep.
that first.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'll,
I'll be the bad guy. There.
okay.
It's my
Um,
job.
good. We're not in Roman times.
I know, right? Where they killed the messenger.
Yeah.
I was thinking of 300 Spartans.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Cool. Thank you. Uh huh.
When you find a good scheme joke, I'll take it. Just hand it down. One person is because you don't have any.
first line of the error. Let's scroll down, scroll up to see the first one. It says unhandled error. So it says error listing address already in use. So that means that you have two servers running. So it's not actually that. It's that you're running the server twice, maybe on another terminal. So you need to watch out for that. That should be fine. So once you kill one, it should be fine. Cool. Sure. No, that's fine. Like, oftentimes you just stick with like 8080 or 3000. Yeah, like you don't have to create one different for each one. We're gonna get to see that. Yes, So it turns out that Express will do that for us for some. We'll need to do the rest. For instance, for this one, I think he's doing it. Let's see. Headers. No, actually, it's not. We should have a header here, say content type text/HTML. The status code. Yeah, I guess let's talk about that next. Yeah. Cool. So Brianni was asking me, do we need to set the headers, like the content type? Do we need to set the status code, like on the previous server with just the HTTP module? And the answer is yes, you should always include those. You should always include those headers. So I was looking at here, some of them will be put automatically by Express. I think we can see this one is put automatically by Express, this response header, letting the client know who is powering the server. If you go to maybe GitHub, let's see, what's the server that powers GitHub? Let's go to network, refresh this page. Let's look for the HTML, so it must be like document. Document, there's only one. We have the server, it doesn't say Express, it says just github.com. They're putting this, you can change this as well. So, but you see how they are putting something like content type. They should be putting content type, yes. You see how they're putting content type, text HTML, and what character set is that one. So we should always include also the content type. So for adding the content type, similar to what we did, is going to be the same thing, but we do it slightly different. Is before you send the request, rest that set. Yeah, so instead of set header, this one is just called set, and then you say the name, content, type, text/HTML. And then the status is rest.status. Yes, the rest.status 200. So you will always want to include those as well. Yes. Or say that again? It is necessary. But guess what? This seems like we're gonna need to do this a lot, right? Somebody built something for that. We're not gonna get to see it today, but yes. So let's refresh this page. Now let's go to the page, login. We should see, now we see content type, text HTML. We see the length, and we see the 200. If you get 304, that's fine. 304 means not modified. That means the server saw that you requested, oh, actually the browser saw. No, this is in conjunction. The browser and the server saw that you were making the same network request, and the server told the browser nothing has changed. That's why I'm giving you a 304, not modified. I'm just giving you the same stuff that you just saw before, but because nothing changed, 304 not modified. I mean,
Do we have to set the header only for get request or for other people as well?
for all the others too, yeah. Janesh? Yes, that means it's cached. Yes, the server is doing that. Actually, I'm not very sure. I think it's a conjunction between the server and the browser. Not modified. Let's see if this says anything about cache. It is an implicit redirect to a cache resource. Yeah, so it is cache. Cool, so yes, you should always include those. Let me see what else we have here. Oh, so we were talking about if we could have nested endpoints, and here we see some examples. Close this. This is some examples here for something like example.com. We saw like this one will be like our about us, right? This is an endpoint. This is another endpoint. This is a nested endpoint, right? This is the endpoint. Endpoint is nested. We could think of as nested within the another endpoint. So in the example that I was talking earlier, that would be like we have the root endpoint, then we have like /catalog, and under catalog we have /catalog/bytes. That will be an example. We're not going to get to see how to nest it like today. That is coming up next week on Canvas. That is what we call here nested routing and app structure. So we're going to get to see how to nest those later. Peter?
Can you go back to the login page and the network, like the actual page?
Here? You don't see, did you refresh? Then you went to the network tab and you clicked on the network here. Were people able to see the network request in here in the Chrome Developer Tools?
I see.
Cool. Okay, let me see what else do we have here. Okay, so yeah, like the example that I showed with Craigslist, this is another example on Instagram. Instagram/NBA will show you the NBA page, right? Cool, so the request method, so we touch on this. These are the most common methods. Get, used to retrieve a resource. Get is not supposed to modify a resource or contain any body data. The post request is used for posting data, adding data to the server or for the server to save. Put is used for replacing or updating a resource completely. We talked about this on a previous lesson. And delete is used for deleting a resource. So for instance, in this analogy of we have a catalog, let's say we're in the bike section and then we're looking at one specific bike. If we are like, the people that are managing this server, we could send a net request, a delete net request to remove the bike, for instance. So these are the methods, and we saw how to use the post request on Express. these are gonna be our bread and butter as we start to actually save information to the server and removing it. But yeah, I think I get the sense that we have a good sense as to what this will do and what you will use them in different situations. We just haven't gotten to explore that yet. Yeah, so let's do, we try to post, put, delete. We're not gonna get to see, oh, let's go on here, which is, we kind of talked about it already. When you want your server to handle a specific type, a specific method, oh, by the way, these are also known as verbs, HTTP verbs, get, post, etc. When you want to handle any of those, you will say apt, and then the method that you want to handle, one of get, put, patch, delete, post, the path or the endpoint at which you want your server to listen for this request of this kind, and the second argument is the handler, the callback function. So let's just look at it in here. In here, we have app.get, that is the method that we want to handle. The path or endpoint will be /about_us, and our handler, something what we call here handler, is this callback function. It's called handler because this is the function that will handle the requests that are coming to this endpoint and of this type or of this method. Questions on this end? Yes, Cameron?
With this, like, how much more complicated would it be to like host your own server or page?
Not very complicated. Like you guys, with what we have shown here, you could host your own already.
And on the web, so you don't even like HostGator or any of those other basically community.
Oh,
Or HostGator.
I see. So you can host this server. I could host this server, but if I wanted to run, but I will need, if I want this server to be publicly available from like anywhere in the internet, I need somebody that will let me put it like online basically, so that it's globally available.
So you can't do that yourself.
GitHub allows you to, actually GitHub doesn't allow you to run a server. That we're gonna learn later on, yes. About there is a server that we're gonna use called Heroku that let us run servers. And if you notice, when we did like the to-dos API, it says to do Heroku. To-dos Heroku. Yes. So you see that this URL here says FSW62 to-dos API, Heroku.com. That is because Heroku is lending me a computer, and I put the server to run on that computer, and that's about it. We're learning that by the end of this unit. Yeah. You will need, as they just said, you will need a static IP, which you can only get with your internet service provider, and you'll have to pay for that. Because static IPs are mainly for businesses that want to like put their websites. Yes. You could do it at home, but it's risky. We're having that somewhere else. Yeah. We could maybe later in the unit, actually, I don't know if that's safe to say. I could show you how to put it on your home, and it will still be publicly available, but you will need to type in the IP address from your like home. And then, if you're not careful, then people can break in. Cool, so that is this. Let's see what else. So we saw, these are some examples. Oh, let's see this. Let's see how to send JSON before we move on to rendering parameters. So it turns out that in here, I'm sending, I could do res.send to send raw text, right? And if that text is HTML, the browser will interpret it. I could also send JSON, and I don't have to stringify because Express will do it for me. So I'm going to do get, let's say like this, /users, comma, and then my handler, request response. So far, I'm not actually using the request for anything, as we can see here. I'm just responding and replying. So let's do, to send some data in JSON format, we could just say, let's do actually this, let users, I'm going to create this object outside differently from what we have in the lecture notes, but that shouldn't be a major thing. So I have an object called users. I'm going to call it actually data. And then in here I have a property called user that has a few user names inside in an array. Bob, who else? And cat. That's it. So I have some, this is a JavaScript object, right, with a property that is an array. If I wanted to send this data, this JavaScript object with the all HTTP, I'll have to call res.send, let's just do it, json.stringify data. Let's set the content type with the res.set content type so that the browser knows that it's getting data, JSON. Set that header. And I could do this. If I go now here, instead of going to this, let's close that. Let's go to /users. I got the JSON data back in here. And because I have this extension that prettifies the JSON for me, I see it like this. Was everyone able to see the JSON? Cool. So then one more instance, they saw, oh, we're stringifying all the time. Let's just create a function that will do it for us. So what they came up with was a function called res.json. And you put data. Actually, I don't think you will need, yeah, let's do it this way. Refresh, and we're getting the exact same JSON back. So res.json will just stringify the data for you. Stringify that JavaScript object that is somewhere in your computer memory and turn it into a string, a JSON string. If we go in here, users, we should see, we see the response. So this is what it looks like raw, basically. And then the headers, we set content type. Oh, but that one didn't come. See, refresh. Oh, there it is, content type. Sometimes when you do, I do Command R to refresh, right? Hopefully you do too, instead of having to click in here. Sometimes you want a hard refresh to get like brand new information that is not cached. So for instance, now I got a 3 or 4. For doing like a hard refresh, you can right click in here and say hard reload. But then you could also learn this shortcut, which is Shift Command R, and then do it yourself. And now I got a 200 again. Because like the browser is flushing all the previous information and making that request as new. Yes?
So you said you don't need res.send JSON stringify because it automatically stringifies it?
Because res.json automatically stringifies it. That's correct.
So those two lines are
Yes, they do the same thing, yes. I mean?
I just take that sand and data and I do the same thing.
You didn't stringify? So Amin did this, and he said it worked. Let's try it out. That did work. Let's see this. This might actually be the refresh, header refresh. Get this, and we get the response. That's good. And note this here, like, oh wait, what? Let me just make sure that nothing is going on with my server. So this is like a downside of using NodeMon is that something might be going on with your server and then you just forget because you're just not used to checking it and restarting it. But yeah, in here my server is running okay. So that works. Rest.send works. So since I'm not very sure, let's try this. Rest.send versus rest.json. Differences between the two. It sends a response and performs useful tasks for simple non-streaming responses like automatically assigning content length and providing automatic head and HTTP. It sends JSON response. This method is identical to send when an object or array is passed, but it also converts non-objects to JSON. Oh, this is the key here. A non-object to JSON. That will be then if a non-object could be like a number then. Let's try this. Network response. No, it didn't do much. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to hear because it's saying rest.json it also converts non-objects to JSON. So I'm trying to come up with a non-object. But then we're gonna get like here. Oh, this is something. We found a difference. So note here that in the documentation, probably this is in the documentation for Express 2. In rest.send, we can specify the body or the status. So this is trying to set this 1500 is trying to set the status code, and that's why it's breaking in this fashion. Invalid status code is 500. And it doesn't break with JSON. That is something to keep in mind. For the most part, then we could use both. I know that JSON will set something that JSON does. Let me just verify this before I say anything. Data. Hard refresh this. Users. Yes. So something that JSON does that .send doesn't do is automatically set the content type header. You see that I have it commented out here, but it's still included, that one. Because res.json inside is going to set the request header, the response header for us. Yeah. This will be a little bit also more expressive, saying you're explicitly sending JSON data. Send will let you send anything. Yes?
I have a question that's a bit irrelevant, but I want to keep up on. What is that? Add icon?
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Do you see these icons here? You see like this icon, that one? That's the fav icon. It's known like that, I think, because when you favorite that, that's the thing you see. And it's making that request because it's used to see a fav icon, but at this time we don't have it yet. Cool. Let's see. Or questions or comments about the JSON, sending JSON data. So if we do res.json, we don't need to send. We don't need to set the content type, which is still good to say res.status 200. Let me just remove this one. Yep. So questions or comments about sending JSON? Maybe JSON won't let me. What if I do res.json and I try to send HTML? Maybe that will break. I'll let you guys try that later. Cool. So let's see how to read parameters in, which is the last part. Oh. Okay. So you see how when you do on Instagram, you can do Instagram/Subway Creatures, and this will get me the Subway Creatures website, the Instagram site. This is it's very funny to see this Instagram. I don't know if you guys are familiar with. Yeah, there's. It's pretty wild. That's why it's called Subway Creatures. It's an entirely different world. But you see how then I can type here, this is my Instagram account. And this part here sort of like changes, right? This is not like hard-coded. What's Free Bread? I think this is a company that I used to work for. Oh, no, not this guy. Oh, Free Bread Inc. Yes, this is a bakery I used to work for. Oh, this is my former boss. So, yeah, it was gluten free. Cool. So you see how this part here, like the last part, is sort of dynamic, right? We could put anything and we get different things. Imagine if they had to hard code like this. One for every single Instagram user, right? That would be quite a heavy job. So what we can do is sort of set this to be dynamic, so that anything you type in here can get you a different thing. So let's sort of simulate this from Instagram. So we do that by using something called parameters in the endpoint. So let's look at it here. Reading parameters. So what you could do is in the endpoint, you just use colon user ID or colon anything here, and then that will become sort of like a dynamic part of the URL. So let's look at that with this user. So let's do users. Here, actually, let's do, actually, I think this is the example that they were, yes. The example that we have. So let's have /users /colon user ID, this exact same example. Right. And then we can say something like the user that we want to send is, so I'm going to send, let's see what we have here. You know what, let's do this. So if the user puts user ID 0, then we give Amy. If the user puts user ID 1, then we give Bob, and so on. So let's do that. If we have, let's actually just have this array like bare like that. Let users equal that, and then here I'm going to say let user equal. You know what? Before we do that, let's do this. Let's reply. Let data what equal to an object and say user ID equal to, this is our first use of the request object, request dot params dot user ID. So let's look at this first. I'm going to say res.json dot data. So, oh yes, thank you. That's a good catch. So let's go here, refresh this page. Cannot get users. Cool. That's because I changed this here. So now I need a user ID, right? So let's try /1, and we get user ID 1. So this is similar. Do you guys remember yesterday I did the URL that you could say like your name, and then you'll get the request by your name. So this is similar. I could say Alejo. Then this thing that I put after here is being captured into something called the user ID that will be inside of the request params. So the request params is anything that I specify with a colon and a name here. And then I can access it by using this same name in the params objects. rec.params.userid. So this is how we can make our page a little bit more dynamic. So you could think of, this, instead of, just sending this JSON, it will actually show me my Instagram page. If we say subway creatures, we'll see subway creatures, right? So we said we actually wanted to use this ID as, like if the ID is 0, then let's show Amy. If the ID is 1, let's show Bob. If the ID is 2, let's show Cat. So how can we do that before we depart? Let's say I want to show here username. What is the username going to be equal to? Users. Let's try this. Now I got the user ID was subway creatures, and I got all the users, but I don't want to get all the users. I want to get, if I specify 0, I want to get only Amy. If I want to get Bob, I want to say user/1. So I use this user ID. How could we do this? What are these IDs? Like, why did I pick 0, 1, and 2? So in here, what I want to do is I want to access the users array at one specific index. What specific index? So let's do this. Let's do let user ID equal to rec.params.userid. I'm just so that I can reuse this variable. And then I'm going to say user ID. And then I'm going to say users at index user ID. So I want to grab from the users array, whatever user is at the user ID that I specify. What this gives us is that then if I do this, it breaks. $500, I'm getting User ID is not defined. Oh, here. No, let's capitalize everything. ID, and ID here. Then I got Bob. If I try 0, I get Amy, because basically I'm using the indices from this array as IDs for these users. If I do 3, then I don't get anything, right? Because there is no user at index 3, and so on. So, questions before we end? Actually, I have to check. I think Dessa had an announcement to make before we leave. I'm sorry that it took 3 more minutes. Let me go grab her, see if she wants to make that announcement.